Good morning, everybody. Instead of having a podcast today, I think what I'm going to do is have a Mind Games Reacts kind of like kickoff episode, which is a series that I've been thinking about doing because essentially when I started on YouTube, it's 2014 or 15, I think it's 2014, I was creating analytic content on behind-the-scenes content. So essentially looking at what coaches or esports teams were doing and discussing their decisions from how it is that they were prepping for competition or prepping for games or recovering from losses from the perspective of sports sciences or sports psychology. And that's something that I haven't done in a couple of years, but it was interesting. It drove a lot of like questions, and those questions then, of course, drove the Ask Weldon show, which is the podcast that I do. So I wanted to do a little bit more analytic analysis of the behind-the-scenes content of esports teams. So let's jump into the first video. I wanted to talk about G2. So let's hear what Jankos has to say on like what's next for him. So here's Jankos' message about the first kind of like inside piece of content about G2 since their loss. And so we can talk about the context of G2 and kind of what he discusses in this video. This is one of the ones that I've watched.
Hello everyone, Jankos here from back home after the end of season for G2 Esports and for me, of course.
Is the music coming from his video?
You can see the quality of the camera is not the same as it used
I think it is
to be in the gaming house, but I just felt like talking to you basically, right? So the season ended and I wanted to say a few things. First of all, I think that of course, it's a huge disappointment this year. There is no way around it. There's no way to say it other than that, right? We were supposed to make it to...
Well, okay, this has nothing to do with sports psychology, but I think it's really interesting that they had like morose piano music, like calming, kind of like feel the empathy of this person, morose, like piano music playing in the background, but like super, super, super low. So if you're listening to it on your headphones, you kind of like don't know if it's like coming from another room or if it's coming from this video. And if you're listening on speakers, you might not even hear it at all.
Worlds, we were supposed to be good in Europe, right? The goal is always to win. And we failed to do so in Spring Split and Summer Split. So it is very fair to say that the year is just a disaster and a huge disappointment for everyone, for the players, for the org, and also for you guys, as the fans watching and cheering for us. I think, though, that Summer Split went better than Spring Split did. Just talking about the splits a little bit, I felt like in Spring Split, probably after the end of the season, it felt like we could have done more as players. Basically felt like we could try harder, right? That it was not the final form of what we should be and how we should play and everything. It felt like...
This is pretty common across teams, that your perception of the performance of the split has to do more with the number of regrets you have about how much and how well you trained and how well prepared you thought you were, like how close you were to your 100%. So imagine that G2 has like a 100% capability and then like a 90% capability, and if they performed objectively better score-wise but played at 85% of what they expected or what they perceived to be their potential, that's going to feel worse internally than doing worse score-wise, like at the end of the season, how far deep they get into playoffs, but playing at what they subjectively experienced as like 100% of their team's potential, right? So, and you measure that by like how much regret you feel over all of the actions that you did or did not take that you feel like you could have taken to like move the needle a little bit more. And that is usually invisible to the fan base, essentially. Like that's kind of like a personal journey for each player in terms of how much they feel like they put in and how much gas they felt like they had in the tank at the end. Like you always want to end. I always talk about this with swimmers. Like you always try to end like the 100-meter swim at the level of exhaustion where in which if there was no lane line there to like drape yourself over, you would just sink to the bottom of the pool and drown. Like you're trying to actually put out all of the energy in your body. And if you can't manage to do that, there are people that finish the race below the time that they want to, and you're sitting there with all of this like leftover muscular energy where you're like holding onto the edge of the pool and you're like, dang, I didn't leave it all on the track. Like I didn't leave it all in the pool. Like I couldn't. Either you couldn't manifest it or you mistimed. Like you didn't put enough into the first 50. And so you saved too much for the back 50, you know? So when people are like managing their seasons in a League of Legends game, it's like a similar thing. You're like, okay, how much of myself do I put into this week and next week? When am I going to have my lows and highs and burn out? And like, how much can I train to like make sure that I leave it all on the field? And also I've noticed that for people who go to Worlds a lot, this is a difficult balance to make because they know that Worlds is going to be an unbelievable amount of training. And so there's this hesitation or this pullback in the spring, which is kind of like what he's talking about here. But there's also a hesitation or pullback in the summer split because you're like, if you believe that you're going to go to Worlds, you're trying to save some in your tank for like actually doing well at Worlds because that is your true metric of performance. And then you start to get these regrets like, well, we didn't even make it, so what the heck? But it sounds like they were pretty focused on making it. I think that there are other teams that like slack off too much in the summer with the expectation of going to Worlds in order to prep for Worlds, or they spend too much time forward looking on their strategy and their prep for Worlds when they should just be focused on winning the next game on the next weekend. And that is his own kind of like issue. But I did not see that in G2, and the way that he described the summer or the spring split did not sound like he hasn't described the summer split yet, but he's implying. Didn't TSM 2016, our Chowdhury says, didn't TSM 2016 train way more than teams for now? What changed? No, we trained as much as teams now train, but other teams were not training that hard. What changed? We trained more than other teams were willing to, and the game was not as understood as well. And so we were quite ahead on the concept of tempo. In 2016, the concept of tempo was not yet fully fleshed out. It wasn't until 2017 that like the word started getting used a lot and started like finding its way into, I would say, coaching conversations at the team level. Before then, tempo was like a discrete set of a bunch of other different things that were like separate, like objective setups. And in 2016, we played so much that as a team, we had developed a concept of high tempo that could not be like stopped that much at... so in 2016 in TSM, we essentially came up with this idea of like play setup, play execution, and then post play reward taking, and we had a measurement graphic, not graphic. We had a you could either cash in after the play and take the win, or you could use the time that you bought with the play to set up the next play and keep your tempo. So we kept the idea of like not cashing in our tempo and just assuming that we were not going to make a mistake on the next play either. And then teams in North America couldn't really, like they had trouble breaking that loop. Because when it got to the plays, like Double Lift and Bjergsen were so good mechanically that like they would win the executions a lot of times. And so I think that just came from our amount of playing together, which was we played a lot together, like as a team. And nowadays, teams play together less probably than we did, because I think that we just did more evening blocks like the whole time. But also, you need to play together less because these concepts are more well known. The concept of tempo is like actually mappable now. Like we have words for it, and people know what it is, and people know when you have it and when you lose it, and how it's represented in a game. And so, like, you don't have to train as much to learn it because it's a system that you can pick up versus one that we were just kind of like feeling out, as we were doing it? Good question.
Like, we need to give more of ourselves in summer split. Every players basically felt like we could try harder, right? That it was not the final form of what we should be and how we should play and everything. It felt like we need to give more of ourselves in summer split. And in summer split, I felt like we worked actually pretty hard, all of us, right? I think every player, but our management, our coaching staff, everyone tried really, really hard throughout the whole split to make it work and to win the split, right? The goal was to actually win the split and be in the best shape possible to compete at Worlds. And I felt like, we kind of all gave it our best. Maybe we had different ways of giving it our best, right? I think not every person is the same, and I think that for every person it works slightly different what they should do to be at their peak performance. But I believe that in Summer Split, everyone individually and as a team stepped up a lot, and we tried our hardest to be at Worlds this year, and to compete there as individuals again and as a team. But we fell short in the end. We changed like some of our schedules as well in the split, where we did a lot of team activities, and I think overall that Summer Split was.
So it's nice to hear from his perspective. I think just as he's saying it's individual, each person needs to control their taper, like their load. So they're loading up the amount of training that they know that they can do or can or need to do in order to be at their peak of what they can do. He firmly believes that all of his teammates were playing as best as they could be playing. And that the team was, and maybe he also thinks that the team was at 100%, but probably he thinks that like there are things that they could do as a team that would be better. I mean, otherwise, I don't know. I don't know if he thinks that like their loss was inevitable, or if it was based on luck and random chance, or if it was based on like the aggregate of each of them playing at their best, not being pulled together 100%. Like if their synchronicity was off, you know what I mean? Or if it was just draft diff. I don't know. But it's interesting. I like that he mentioned that they were doing more things as a team. I have noticed that in teams that stay together for like year on year, that essentially there comes this like individualization of activities where like everybody kind of like falls into their own personal habits, and being able to get that team atmosphere back is sometimes really team atmosphere as in like, I really want to go out with these guys and we have something new to talk about that is just not just the game and I already know them all. It's really important to like have these reset things. You can do resets like you can go on a boot camp, or you can go on a hike on a mountain, or you can force the players to talk about something that they have never discussed before with each other and learn new facets of each other's identity and like history. These are all ways that you can like allow this miniature honeymoon phase to creep back into a team that has already been together and fallen into these habits and emotions that like, I know this guy, show them that they don't actually like know them as well as they do. I remember on our swim team in college, we had this workshop with one of the Olympic coaches that came out, and we were kind of just like sailing through the season, and he came out and like shook things up, and we did a bunch of drills that we'd never done before, and we had a bunch of lane partners that we'd never had before, and he mixed up the relay teams, and it was like our entire team like completely leveled up just from doing things that weren't the status quo, just from doing things differently and meeting each other again in a new context. So I think that these team activities, they can be incredibly powerful for team performance, and they can also be completely useless if you do them wrong. Like you can go out to dinner as a team, and then you can all just talk about League of Legends and like the things that happened like that day on your streams, and like funny things that you all know about, and kind of like rehashing the past. I actually saw this a lot at CLG. There were these players that would just like rewatch past videos, and kind of like relive those moments with their teammates sometimes, which isn't really the best bonding tool from a performance standpoint. Like it doesn't get you anywhere. It's kind of just like circle jerking, I guess you would say is the Reddit terminology, about your day or about your career or about memories. But it doesn't do much progressive work in terms of like building up the trust that you need to be able to confront them about a macro decision that they're doing that you think is incorrect, or to be able to trust them to make the engage that will win the game, or to be able to trust them in champ select when they say, no, I have to play this champion. It's totally like just the game is on me, and if we lose it, and I'm going to go for it. Like those are things that you're usually trying to like build up in your team activities, is like this mutual trust and this motivation between each other to want to excel for your teammate. And that kind of like reminiscing style conversation like isn't that useful for generating that. So you can have an entire team dinner that is like 2 hours long, but accomplishes like 0% forward movement from a sports psychology angle in terms of like team performance. Or even just like 1 or 2%, you know, as opposed to what could be a 20-minute activity that is well structured that gets you forward 50%. You know, I see this a lot of times in American football where they kind of like try to supplement like team dinners or team activities with team building. And then there are coaches that know how to turn those activities into team building, but those things that you do during the team building activities, during the dinners and whatever, make the difference between just eating food together and like actually getting better as a team. I don't know what their team activities were like. I'm curious to dig more into them, but he doesn't go into this video, so we won't really know.
Super enjoyable, and I think a lot of team activities, and I think overall that Summer Split was super enjoyable, and I think hopefully you could support the players more now that, I mean, given we lost against both Matt and Fnatic, I went through, I guess, Twitter, Reddit, and some other things, and I just felt like there's a lot of hate going on to maybe Wunder or Mickey or me, myself, right, Reckless, Caps, coaching staff, whoever, right? I mean, there's like haters for everyone, but I personally felt like every single player in our team tried the very hardest they could and gave themselves like fully to the cause of you know, competing on the highest level. And that is why I would like to say it out loud that I don't think, in the team at least, between teammates, I mean, we were playing as a team and we were as one kind of during the series. So there is, of course, no hard feelings between players. And I would like the players to be like supported more, if that makes sense.
There's a really big tell here, and I want you guys to carry this forward when you look at like the content that a team or team leaders or team captains or team players produce after a season. If you're on a team and you like your teammates try as hard as you expect them to, like you can tell that they're maximizing their effort, that they're respecting you as a teammate, that they're putting forth their best foot, and that they really want to win, and you can respect their urge to win because their motivation and their drive seems to be parallel with yours, then after the season is over, if they're getting crap and you're not, you feel really bad. You're like, why are people giving him crap? Like, it's just randomly lucky that like I happen to look better in this game than them or something. And like I could have equally as made the game losing mistake, but like they're getting a bunch of crap for it, like about their like motivation or something like that, which he's talking about here with Wunder. And was it Mickey also that he mentioned? And now he's making this video specifically, I think, to like call that out. Basically, this to me is like the niggling frustration in his brain that is like driving most of this video. Is like he's defending the team, right? But he didn't need to make this. Like people weren't saying like Jankos is the problem on Reddit. So he's doing this like specifically to explain this, and also as the person who's not getting as much flack to defend the people who are getting flack. If somebody doesn't make this video, usually it's because they kinda agree. What I've noticed is that at the end of the season, in the off season, what the players are talking about to coaches and stuff like that is like they're kind of like pissed at their teammates who didn't put forth the best foot. And when they're getting crap on social media, they will not step up and defend them. They will not go the extra mile to make. They're not going to shit on them, you know, and they're not going to like. I didn't mean to swear there. Sorry. They're not going to like the tweets and retweet the stuff that's like going against them, right? But like quietly, secretly, they're going to be like, exactly. Somebody said it, you know. They weren't able to confront them during the season or say these things to their face, but they're kind of like Schadenfreude, like happy that they're like getting some comeuppance or like some judgment. And some people are just scared. They're like, I didn't do very well and the mob is not coming after me. So there's two people that will not make these videos. There's the people who like actually kind of agree with it and don't agree with the criticism and don't want to defend their teammate. And then there's people who are just like scared and happy that it's not pointed at them. And then there are the people who can make these videos, which are like people like Jankos and Perks and the people who are like internal pillars of ego. So like they are self-satisfied and content with their own choices and their own skill level, and they know that they can be and want to be as good as they choose, and like they kind of like care less what fans think because they know what they think about themselves, and it doesn't matter as much what other people think about themselves. It's kind of like bounces off more, and those are the kind of people that can make these videos where they're defending their teammates. But you have to be in the right mindset, and then you have to have the right personality to do it. Personality of like the I'm already a champion internally, kind of like I care more about what I think about me than what other people think about me. So it's kind of cool to see. It's also poignantly absent and interesting to not see when you don't see it, because then you know kind of what's going on also.
Instead of being looked down upon by you and blamed, like there's no hard feelings between players, and I would like the players to be like supported more, if that makes sense, instead of being looked down upon by you and blamed, right?
He's literally like, he's saying you. He definitely made this video specifically for this moment. I feel like he's like literally saying you.
Because I mean,
did you hear how he said that?
And we were as one kind of during the series, so there's of course no hard feelings between players, and I would like the players to be like supported more, if that makes sense, instead of being looked down upon by you.
He's like, you have no leg to stand on to look down on us. We're in a different world of sacrifice.
And blamed, right? Because I mean, by you and blamed, right? Because I mean, there's always a
absolutely
case
right.
where you could blame me for a lot of losses, and you can blame other players for a lot of losses, and in the end we are a team and we compete as a team, right? So it doesn't matter as much like individual performances, but how we perform as a team. And again, I mean, I'm very repetitive right now, I'm repeating myself a lot, but I felt like everyone kind of did their best. So to close this down, please be more supportive of the players, because we never know what will happen in 2022. I had to look at the calendar, I'm getting too old. We never know what will happen in 2022, and Carlos already tweeted that he wants to rebuild, right? And I don't know what that means, and I don't want to say anything or spread any rumors.
Interesting. So Carlos tweeted he's going to rebuild, but Jankos doesn't know anything about it. So either Carlos starts his process internally by himself without talking to anybody, or Carlos is already talking to the people he's going to rebuild around, and Jankos hasn't been contacted. I don't know which of those it is, but I feel bad. Yeah, what he's saying is like, stop coming down on the players because people about to lose their jobs, and it's going to suck. It's a stressful season of life for pros.
Because I personally have no clue what will happen in next year. For now, I know that I'm signed until, I guess, the end of next year, and so are other players. But what will happen, we'll see. And yeah, that's kind of the end of this subject. And the other subject is for the future. I didn't really plan much on, well, I didn't really plan much, right? Because I thought that I'm not really gonna have 4 months off, and I thought that I'm gonna make it to China. Now the worlds are moved from China to Europe. So
I'm happy to hear that he did not plan on losing.
Because I thought that I'm not really gonna have 4 months off, and I thought that.
So I never, ever, ever let my players plan for losing. I and the coaching staff will always like make plans for like what's going to happen if we lose, you know, like what's going to happen if we go out second, what's going to happen if we go out first round or third round or whatever. But like the players are not allowed to like be like, okay, so if we lose, then I'm going to book these tickets now so that I have them, and then I'll cancel them if we win. Like that's like the wrong mindset, right? Everybody should just be focused on like not the concept. Sports seasons are too unpredictable and playoffs suck, and there's too much. Like, you could go out in this round or this round or this round. I don't know if you noticed, but Carlos was like not at the game that they went out, right? And people might be like, oh my gosh, why weren't you there, Carlos? It was like the most important game of the season. It was the last game of the season. Like, how could you not be there to like be backstage with your team between games or something? Like, I saw some comments related to that. And it's like, but why would he come for like a loser's bracket semifinal? You know, like you don't expect that your team, if you expect your team's going to go out there, then you could have expected that your team would go out in the previous match too. So you could like, it's just this chain of like arriving for every single elimination match. I don't think that the owner needs to show up for every elimination match. At some point you have to like believe in your team that they're going to get to like the quintessential match, the finals, the one that really matters. And like, yes, an elimination match in a playoff series might end up being the last game of the season, but if it's like not, and it's an pretty important game for the fans of that team that got eliminated. But like for everybody else, it's just like a game in the sequence that leads up to the regional finals. So it's not that important. So yeah, you don't want to plan as a player. You can't really plan for the consequences of losing every single elimination match because then you're just like mired in this like, what if? You just have to like kind of like feel out where you think the team's going to be and then plan on the highest percentage victory state. I don't think that like everybody should make plans about their China trip, like if their chance of making worlds is low. But anyway, that's the coaching staff's issue. Players should just focus on the game until they're eliminated. Then start figuring stuff out.
I'm gonna make it to China. Now the worlds are moved from China to Europe. So I guess at least I can compete in solo queue against some of the best players if I cannot compete as a team. So
yeah, that's true. Anybody who's taking training trips to Korea should like cancel them and make training trips to Europe for Worlds, because it's going to be like not only European solo queue, which is probably some of the best solo queue in the world, but also, some of the best solo queue for Western players to train in, because you train your mental as well as your mechanics. But also like everybody's coming to the server. And it's like one central server. It's not like China where it's like split up between different servers. So it's pretty condensed. So I feel like the European West server is going to be competing with the Korean server in terms of like in-game training for this Worlds. That's really exciting.
That's kind of interesting actually, and I'm pretty happy that the teams will come here. It will also make it easier to probably watch the games with you guys, right? Most likely I'm going to live view the games, the Worlds. I will probably not live view Europe as I have some appointments with my friends and family this weekend. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to watch Europe with you guys, but I'm definitely going to watch Worlds with you. And hopefully that will also help me to improve and learn and grow as a player and as a person. But yeah, I have no plan.
Do you think you really meant that? Like, I don't hear a lot of people like saying this, that they're like lose out to Worlds and they're like, I lost because I'm worse than these people and I'm going to study them and get better. Like that's something that like analysts say or, you know, coaches or whatever, but players kind of have to have this in order to believe that you can be the best. You have to like have some self-perception of, it's hard to be both humble and egotistical. Let me put it that way. It's like a knife that cuts both directions. It's hard to be perfectionistic and yet still like be super open to learning from other people. So either he made the transition really fast after he lost, or Jankos is just a really cool guy in terms of like his dual mindset, which is something that we talk about a lot with players in sports psychology training, which is like these dualities that exist, where you have to like hold two opposing concepts in your mind and like agree that like both of them are fine, right? You have to be like 100% sure that you're going to succeed on this initiation, and you also have to be totally prepared for it failing, right? But you have to be 100% confident that you are going to like absolutely succeed on this initiation, and it's just going to go fantastically, and you see it, and you have the gumption to go on the play. But you also have to be 100% ready for, if that fails, what your next instant reaction is going to be, and not just be like deer in the headlights, kind of stupefied, right? Which is like a duality. It's like, how do you achieve both mind states? Well, there's this concept called mental flexibility, and the ability to like really rapidly transition from in the now, from like what is to what is, without any preconceptions about what was or what you hoped it to be. And that is a more rare skill, right? It's easy to get the 100% confidence. You can like hack yourself and be like, I'm just 100% confident about everything. But those kind of people have problems with like the mental flexibility part when like something goes wrong. Or you can be like, I'm always prepared for what's going wrong. This is more like the Mithy style player, right? So I would say the 100% confident player is, I would say actually Bjergsen is kind of like that. I feel like Bjergsen is like fully confident, and then sometimes when something goes wrong, he like doesn't react as fast. And then I would say like Mithy to me was like I'm prepared for every situation of things going wrong, but he's not as much prepared for like just going for it when it goes right. That's why his Leona last pick elimination match game in Katowice IEM tournament was so amazing, because he was like, I'm just going to turn on for this game. I'm going to flip the switch to like, I just fundamentally believe that every single thing I'm going to do is going to work out exactly as I see it, no matter what. And he stopped the whole like this is, by the way, one of the things that makes him a good coach, is like he stopped the like decision tree of like, what's going to happen if I optimize all of the things that could go wrong so that I minimize the chance of failure. He was just like, I'm just the best player in this 2v2, and so it's going to go well because I'm the best. And anyway, you can like hack your brain and push your brain into one of these categories, but it limits you in the other one. But then if you have mental flexibility, if you have this like trained skill, which is much more rare, you can actually have the best of both worlds. You can hold those dualities. So I think it's very interesting that he's like talking about already watching people that he lost to and watching people that he admires and like learning from them. Like instantly right after he had to be in this competitive mindset of trying to win and believing that they were going to like sweep Europe, and go to Worlds because they were that caliber of team. Also, junglers have this easier because with jungle, you're always like looking at new paths and you're like always like getting like cool things. I think probably mid laners have this harder because they're like, I already know my matchup because it's my matchup. They're not looking at other people playing the matchup and like instantly being like humble about it, You kind of got to be a little bit cocky to pick Aurelia for a second time in a series against the same player. Anyway.
Whatsoever, I will go back to streaming very soonish. Definitely gonna hit up some solo queue to prepare for 2022. But besides that, I will most likely touch on other games as well. Maybe do some variety streaming, maybe some horrors, maybe other games as well. That'll be coming out later this year. And I wanted to go to Korea to play solo queue as well. I'm not sure if that's possible anymore though, because from what I saw, you can't go to Korea unless, well, you have business there, or you have a family member there, and I don't have neither. I mean, technically I could go, or try to go as business, as of, competing and playing solo queue, but I'm not sure if that's legal, so I'll have to look into it, and if it's possible, I'll definitely go to Korea. If it's not, then I will stay in Europe and, and just play solo queue from here. But yeah, I mean, not like specific plans for the future. I still want to compete. I guess I can say that. I don't want to retire yet. My goal was to always win Worlds, and I was never able to do so. At the beginning of my career, I never won Europe, and it improved over
this transitioned really fast. He's talking about like plans for like right now, this off season, and then he's like, I don't want to retire yet. So clearly, like, it was either mentioned in some fans and he's refuting them, or it's like something that people have been asking him, or something that he has considered. Like he's thinking about his career holistically, like even right now, just being like, is this the year I retire? And the answer is no, I still want to go at it. So I wonder which of those is the case.
A couple of years now. Maybe this year was pretty bad, right? But
I should change the name of the stream from Reacts to Psychoanalyzes.
Whatever happens next year, I'm sure that I can still compete on the highest level, and I still have the motivation, or rather the dedication, or I'm willing to sacrifice things to just try again.
Yeah, so he's like, is it motivation you need, or dedication, or is it the ability to sacrifice? I think the third one is the most important. You can be motivated as all get out and not do anything, because it's not enough to overcome the hurdles that you have in front of you for action. I think disciplined dedication, you can be dedicated to something without having the discipline to pull it off. So I think it's like you need to have discipline and the ability to sacrifice. And then you need to have drive. And then experience is like layers of the cake on top of that, or the icing on the cake, because then you like don't do the wrong thing over and over again, thinking that it's going to make a difference. That's really important. I had a player recently on one of my teams who had drive, didn't have a lot of discipline, and had no experience really in like the right kinds of failure. Or like there's just, it's a different thing when you go to Worlds and you can experience like how it is that you lose eventually and get eliminated from Worlds tournaments, because it kind of changes your mindset about regional play and makes you practice harder the way that the game, like, I would say like it makes you sacrifice more. I would say when you go to Worlds and you lose at Worlds and you're like, this is the way that we're going to be eliminated eventually, you go back and you're like, how did I ever like care? How did I ever let winning this scrimmage affect me? Like, okay, we're winning the scrim, I'm going to relax a little. Once you've gone to Worlds and lost there, you're like, okay, it doesn't matter if I'm winning the scrim. I'm not going to relax at all, because the people that I'm playing against are nowhere good enough to win the scrim, and they're nowhere good enough to win at Worlds. And so I need to like find some way of training against these teams that are in my region in a way that prepares me for a Worlds team. And that means that I have to, like, even if we're winning the scrim, which we should be, I have to like try harder to like practice something, instead of just being like, okay, I have a 5,000 gold lead, so I should play like I have a 5,000 gold lead and like, you know, take 1v2s. No, instead, it's more like, I have a 5,000 gold lead, but I'm not going to have this in a Worlds game, so I should play like I have a 0 gold lead, you know, and practice the coordination that I need to have when I'm on stage, or when I'm on stage versus a Worlds team. Because at Worlds, this 5,000 gold lead will be a 300 gold lead, because like they will stop the bleeding, you know. And on stage in my region, it will be a 2,000 gold lead. So I think that like there's that level of like sacrifice that you kind of need to have instilled in you that goes along with the discipline and the understanding of like the perspective, I guess, the experience. So I think that he has a lot of the experience, which means that his discipline like goes farther for him. You're the same amount of discipline that somebody else might have, he can take it farther because he knows what it is that he's going to be losing to against a really good team.
And to be the best and to still compete on the highest level, and I still have the motivation, or rather the dedication, or I'm willing to sacrifice things to just try again to be the best and to compete on the highest level, because it's still what drives me, and I enjoy it over streaming, which I also enjoy a lot, but competing is still the main thing I want to do. So yeah, I mean, I guess now that I have a lot.
Oh yeah, this is something that pretty much all pros wrestle with, is do I try to cash out when I still have an audience and I'm good? Or do I want to play more? Like Double Lift Wrestle does this, right? Or do I need to be on stage because of the rush and I'm addicted to that winning and I want to achieve something that I can look back on? So that's like always the balance of like, do I stream and be an entertainer, or do I get up on stage and get my heart rate up to like 160 when I'm about to do an engage on Sejuani for the 7 millionth time?
a lot of time off, I'll probably think about my life a bit as well, since all there is to it is League of Legends streaming. But yeah, that's kind of it. I just wanted to make sure that you understand that I'm fine as well. I wanted to say that I'm fine, and I took a couple of days to rest and think over what happened and how the year was. And yeah, I mean, it's a competition, right? Not always you can be on top. There's people that are trying as hard as you are, and not in every case you can be the best, you can be the champion. So even though the year was disappointing, I had a lot of fun playing, especially in the summer split. And let's see what the future brings. And for now, please make sure to be supportive towards everyone whom lost, not only our.
I really like what he said about other people trying just as hard as you are. I feel like I have had players who don't understand that. They're always like, everybody else is like, this team sucks, this team sucks, this team sucks. I don't want to scrim against these guys. These guys aren't even trying. I don't think that every pro player truly believes that everybody else is trying just as hard as they are. It's more rare. It's definitely a maturity thing, for sure. It's nice to hear Jankos say that. Obviously, I would expect him to have that mindset, but I would assume everybody on G2 has that mindset. Sometimes it's hard for, like, there was this comment that Adam had about Alfari, where he was like, was it Adam and Alfari, or was it Wonder? It was Wonder and... Yeah, it was Adam and Wonder. Sorry, not Alfari. Alfari is in NA playing on C9. I was thinking of Wonder. The quote that Adam had after they beat G2, where he was like, he was like, we scrimmed this team when we were playing in the regional leagues, and I picked I picked Olaf, and he didn't want to play, so he picked Yumi and inted it. Maybe he should have picked a serious champion in training against me. I thought that was kind of like, that was like, for Adam, that was like a core drive. That was something that Adam used to train himself and hone himself like a weapon in order to like take down G2, right? That was a moment of like, you can take these kernels of time that you have, and you can hone them into like diamonds and nuggets that like power you like a battery through the most challenging of times. And it was really clear that was a moment that he had taken in and been like, I'm going to use this to fuel me, to fuel my training, to fuel my mindset, to fuel the like last game of the night on the hardest night of the year, like on the longest day of the year, in the darkest time, when like I can't play another solo queue game, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I gotta, And then he has this beautiful moment where he like gets to like eliminate this player, and like the full circle of the catharsis of that like powered drive, right? And this is something that rookies have a lot because they have all of these like moments. But the thing that Adam's gonna realize is that he's gonna have and probably already has, in this hilarious way, he's probably had the same exact thought when he has scrimmed against teams that he feels like they aren't trying as hard and they're like troll picking him. I remember that like TSM had this moment with Meteos's one of Meteos's junglers that he just kept picking, and TSM was just like, just ban it, it's ruining all of our practice. I personally think that it's never ruining practice to like play against different compositions. But in a way, it's like de-efficientizing it, right? It's like less efficient because you're not playing against the champions that you're preparing to play against on this patch on this weekend, right? Which is kind of like how it really matters. It's not like Wonder was probably practicing to try to win the game that he has to play that weekend when he was scrimming against Adam's team back then. And it's like, I have only these 5 scrims, and then I only have like 7 solo queue games, and I have to learn this new matchup, and I have to practice this laning. I have to not practice this laning phase so that we can go into a stable mid game, because we as a team need to learn dragon setups. And instead, I have this completely new matchup that there's no chance of happening this weekend, and it's like very inefficient, useless practice, and it's just driving me nuts. So like that's more of like something that you would train in solo queue on pro teams, or that you just cancel the scrim over. If you're a team like G2 or TSM or one of these teams that like doesn't like random troll picks to show up when they're like have a specific champion pool that they're trying to practice, because you can really only like have a certain number of champions at the highest level. So I feel like what was it that he said that drove this?
Playing.
That some players perceive that other players aren't trying their hardest, but like within the context of that player, a lot of them are trying their hardest, and that's important for pros to recognize about each other. That is often like kind of disregarded, and I don't mean disregarded verbally, like people say it, right? But it's different between saying it and believing it, and when you believe it, it actually inhibits your ability to take practice seriously when you're playing against teams that look to you like they're trolling. To be fair, there are teams that troll scrims and are bad practice,
especially in the summer split. And let's see what the future brings. And for now, please make sure to be supportive towards everyone whom lost, not only our team, I guess, but all the other teams, all the other players. And I will probably see you next time. Oh, actually, one more question just before I turn it off. Any suggestions on YouTube content that they would like to see? Would be high. And of course, I will continue the coaching, look you guys as well. Appreciate it, so that I can see what people actually want. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you didn't mind my TED talk too much, and I hope my face was lookable, like good enough to be lookable at for the past couple of minutes. And yeah, well, I will see you around on YouTube, on Twitch, on social media, and hopefully, even though I can compete, we can enjoy, cheering for European teams together. Because in the end, as much as we are competitors during the season, now we are allies against all the other regions, and I truly hope that whoever it is, Mad Lions, Rogue, or Fnatic, will play very well. And I do think that Mad Lions actually is super, super strong now. So.
I feel like this is an individual thing. Maybe it's also a little bit more European. Like, I feel like there are more people in Europe that think this way, or feel this way, I would say, not think this way. But I think it's also an individual thing. Like, I'm pretty sure that there are players in Europe, even probably players on his team, that secretly want every other team in Europe to, like, lose horribly because they're not there. And they're, like, secretly thinking, like, if they lose at Worlds, it means that, like, it means that, like, all of their, like, yay, they beat us, like, fallacy castle comes crumbling down, right? And then there are players I've met who secretly want their team to take it all, so they can be like, see, they beat us, but, like, they're so good that, like, or here's what they want. They want the team that eliminated them to win, and they want every other team to lose. Right? They want the team that eliminated them out of playoffs to, like, go super far and deep into Worlds, but not win at all, because that would make them even more angry. But then they want every other team that didn't eliminate them to just, like, crash and burn. I have met a lot of players like that as well. So I feel like there's a whole bunch of different mindsets that go into the Worlds tournament and the Schadenfreude of, like, how it is that you feel about the other teams winning and losing from your region, specifically the teams that you played against, lost against. And it has a lot to do with your perception of, like, whether you thought this team was composed of people who are just, like, strictly better than you. They tried harder than you. They trained more than you. They are more skilled than you. And they, like, represent the best of your region. Those are teams that are easy to cheer for. But when you have a team that you feel like we could have been in that position just as well, then it starts to, like, get into, like, your character and also, like, how you were raised and your mindset toward competition. It's not like you're a better or worse competitor if you want your opponents who beat you to do well, right? This is a totally personal thing that depends on just how you're wired up as a competitor and what you use to drive you. You could, like, absolutely want every single other European team to, like, lose and get smashed, but you could be, like, a really great and super mature and humble competitor. But, like, just the way that you're wired up is, like, you see them all as your enemy, period, no matter what. You know, you're not able to erase the regional moniker when you're looking at a team that is not your team, right? It's just your team versus everybody. Or, like, you have this, like, football mindset that comes more often in Europe, this club mindset where you're like, okay, but, like, now we're Germany, even though this team is composed of people that that I cheered against in my club team, like I'm going to cheer for them because it's Germany, or something like that. So I think that this is not a mark of like a good competitor or a bad competitor or a healthy mindset or whatever. These are just ways that you are wired up in terms of your competitive mindset that makes it easier or harder for you to like cheer for teams in your region. And Jankos is apparently the guy who can just be like, yes, I want to cheer for other regional teams and I want to do it openly and happily. And I actually want them to win. So there are people also that will cheer, but like they secretly don't want them to win. I don't get that sense from him. He's pretty much an open book, in terms of his internal emotions.
I think they will be the ones winning the split, and I also am curious how they will do at Worlds. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you around, I guess. So yeah, have a nice day. Bye.